Hi, welcome to the Rookie Reader. I am Jennifer. So this is a new channel for me, so I wanted to quickly explain who I am and what I'm doing here. So I am a retired teacher, and when I retired a couple of years ago, I started reading books for fun for the first time in years. Prior to that, it was all professional reading. So anyways, I'm at a point now where I just want to talk to somebody about the books I'm reading. So I thought I would start a book review channel. So that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to share with you each month. I plan on sharing the books I read and how I feel about them. That way, if you are looking for some book recommendations, you can watch these videos. So I did read 8 books in January. And I do have one 5-star book and one almost 5-star book. So I'm just gonna go start with the beginning of the month and share what I read with you in chronological order. So the first book I read in January was It Starts With Us by Colleen Hoover. So It Starts With Us is the second book in his little series. The first one was It Ends With Us. I have read 5 of Colleen Hoover's books, and I have very mixed emotions about several of them. I feel like I could make a whole video just talking about that topic alone. So I really struggled with the book, It Ends With Us. I was conflicted because on one hand, I couldn't stop reading it and I wanted to continue reading it. But on the other hand, I really hated the content of it. And it was, I was very frustrated with certain people in the book. So yeah, I had some mixed emotions about it, but then when I got to the end of the book, I really wanted to know what was going to happen next. So when this book came out, I was very excited because I thought, okay, I'm going to get to find out what happens next. And I think that's exactly what she did. I feel like this was a really great follow-up book to the first one. And I think if I hadn't read the first one, I would not have liked the second one, or at least not liked it as much as I did, giving it 4 stars. I think that it's not a good standalone book. I think you need that pain and frustration of the first book to really appreciate what is happening in the second book. So in the second book, we are following the love story of Lily and Atlas. These are 2 people who originally met when they were teenagers and they fell in love. Unfortunately, things didn't work out. They weren't able to stay together due to circumstances really beyond their control. And they grow up and they go on with their lives. They later reconnect as adults and try to rekindle that relationship. And at this point in their lives, they just have more baggage they have to deal with now. So I enjoyed this book. 4 stars is a good rating for me. So if you have read It Ends With Us, I highly recommend that you read the follow-up book, It Starts With Us. Okay, next I read Fairy Tale. Well, actually, I started reading Fairy Tale by Stephen King. I started reading that in October. I wanted to read a scary book, and I thought, okay, I'll read a Stephen King book. I've never read Stephen King before. This was my first Stephen King experience. And I definitely want to read another one of his books. Now this one, it's probably an unpopular opinion, but I only gave it 3 stars. So this book was actually a Good Reader's Choice Award nominee for Best Fantasy in 2022. So people really liked it. I didn't. What I did like was Stephen King's writing. Like I said, it was the first time I read a book by him, and I was blown away by his writing, which makes me want to read more of his books. I want to read more of his writing. He just has this way of writing that really drew me in to the world that he was creating, and I liked it a lot. So the thing about this book that I didn't like is I felt like there were 2 parts to the book. Like there was the beginning part, which was in this world that I was really enjoying. And then there's the second part, which was in a completely different world, more of a fairy tale fantasy world. And I did not enjoy that part of the book at all. Now, I don't know if this is because I don't like fantasies. I mean, I don't know if I like fantasies or not. What I need to do is I need to read other fantasy books to figure that out. Like I said at the beginning of this video, I am new to reading for pleasure, reading for fun, so I'm trying to figure out what I like. I just might not be a fantasy fan. So this is about a high school kid named Charlie Reed who ends up saving a grumpy old man named Mr. Bowditch. Mr. Bowditch ends up having to go to the hospital, and Charlie takes on the responsibility of caring for Mr. Bowditch's dog. So I really loved this part of the book. There is a beautiful connection between Charlie and this dog, and I really liked the banter between Mr. Bowditch and Charlie, and I loved the description of the house, and I loved all of that. But at some point, Charlie finds this portal to another world. It's this fairy tale world, and that's where I just didn't like it anymore. So the book goes in a completely different direction at this point when Charlie goes to this other world. He's now in a fairy tale land. There's all these adventures that happen, and I did not enjoy any part of the book from that point on. So I don't know if it's a case where I don't enjoy fantasy. I don't think I've ever read any other fantasy. So again, if you have a recommendation for a good fantasy book, will you let me know in the comment section below? Because I'm trying to discover what kind of books I like. And I might like fantasy, I just need another experience with it. This is my one and only experience with fantasy. So yeah, please let me know. I'm looking for a recommendation for a Stephen King novel, and I'm looking for a recommendation for a fantasy novel. Let me know your favorites. So after I finished that book, I went back to a genre that I know I love, and that is mysteries, thrillers. So the next book I read was called Local Woman Missing. It's by Mary, I think it's Quebec. This is a 4-star book for me. So this book was a Good Reader's Choice Award nominee for Best Mystery and Thriller 2021. So this was a super fun book to read. I have discovered that I really enjoy thrillers, and this is one of those books that I just couldn't put down. So it starts with the disappearance of a woman in this peaceful little quaint little town where nothing ever happens. So this woman goes missing, and then a week later another woman goes missing, and along with that her daughter also goes missing, like her small child daughter. So the people in the town are freaked out. Why is this happening? Are they connected? So that's all I'm going to tell you because I don't want to give away too much. If you also enjoy thrillers, I highly recommend this one. So after I finished that book, I was still on a thriller kick and I wanted to read another thriller. So I read The Housemaid by Frida McAdam. This was another 4-star book for me. So there's actually a second Housemaid book coming out. So this first one is just called The Housemaid. So that's the one I'm talking about. This is a Good Reader's Choice Award nominee for Best Mystery Thriller for 2022. So this is the story of a girl named Millie. Millie has just recently got out of prison. We don't know why, we don't know what she did or what she was convicted of, but she is on parole and she is looking for a job and she's not having much luck. People don't want to hire her. So she finally lands a job as a housekeeper for a woman named Nina. And she really feels like her luck is changing. She gets this great job in this mansion and Nina seems so cool and nice. And she's going to be her housemaid and also help out with Nina's child, her daughter. So things are going fine, but pretty quickly, like almost right off the bat, Millie feels like there is something off about Nina. Like Nina will do things like ask Millie to do a task, and then when Millie does it, she'll like get mad at her for doing it and deny ever asking her to do it, like that kind of thing. And Millie's really confused, but she also wants to keep her job, so she's putting up with a lot of junk to keep this job. And this book has so many like twists and turns. There were points where I thought I had things figured out, but then something else would happen. So it was great. It was a really fun thriller. There are definitely some difficult parts to this book, so I would recommend that you check out the trigger warnings before reading it. But overall, it was a great book. I'm really looking forward to the next book that comes out. I will definitely be reading it. So after reading 2 thrillers back to back, I thought I would take a break from all the excitement and give a romance book a shot. My idea was that it would be like a little bit calmer, not so intense. So the book I chose to read was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is my first time reading Emily Henry. I know that she's a very popular author and a lot of people like her books. I chose Book Lovers because it won the Best Romance of 2022 in the Goodreads Choice Awards. And after I read the book, I was a little confused about the hype because I only gave this book 3.5 stars. I don't know if it's because I don't like romances or if there was something else about the book that just rubbed me the wrong way. This is an enemy to lovers story, and I just didn't care about that part of the story. So this is the story of Nora. She is a literary agent from New York, and her enemy is Charlie, who is an editor from New York. So they're both from New York, but they end up running into each other in this small town in North Carolina, and they end up bumping into each other like over and over again, and eventually there's some chemistry, there's a spark, and they get together. The thing is I just didn't care about that part of the book. Like, I could have cared less if they got together. In fact, I almost hoped they wouldn't get together. But there were some parts of the book that I loved. Like, it was a very atmospheric book. Like, I love the small town cozy feels. I'm a big fan of the Gilmore Girls and Stars Hollow, the TV show of Gilmore Girls and the little town they lived in. And I felt like it was kind of that kind of vibe. There was a mom and pop bookshop that I thought I just wanted to read more about that and spend more time in that bookshop. I did enjoy, like, there was a little more in-depth exploration into the relationship of Nora and her sister, and also the relationship between Nora and her late mother. And it was just like a very beautiful and complex relationship with all 3 women. And I loved that part of the book. It's just the part you're supposed to care about in a romance, like the actual romance part, it was a bit of a dud for me. I really just didn't care about that part. Have you read this book? And if you have, did you like it? Because it won Best Romance for 2022, it just makes me wonder, like, is there something wrong with me? Like, am I broken? Like, why didn't I not like this? Maybe I don't like romance novels. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's just a genre I don't like. I should probably read some more romance novels before I make that final decision. But yeah, I was a little disappointed, which is why I gave it 3.5 stars. But I still gave it 3.5 because I did enjoy the writing and there were parts of the book that I enjoyed. The next book that I read, well, actually this one I listened to, it was called The Plot by Jean Hanoff Korelitz. I feel like I'm just destroying these authors' names. I am so sorry. So this was a 4-star book for me, and this book was also a Goodreader's Choice Award nominee for the Best Mystery and Thriller for 2021. So I actually listened to this book on audio while I was working. This is a story of an author who was also a literary professor who steals the plot of a book from one of his former students who has passed away. You do get to read significant portions of that book that this author wrote, within this book. So it's like a book within a book. And I thought that was super cool. I loved that concept. So this professor really wanted to be a successful writer. There was like a little glimmer of hope at one point in his career. He wrote a novel, there was a little bit of buzz about it, and then just nothing ever happened. His career just kind of fizzled. So when he found out that this particular student passed away and never finished this great book that he had been planning to write, which with this amazing plot, like he was gonna go on Oprah, he was going to win awards, like there's just this great plot to this book, like anybody could write it. That's how good the plot was. So since this book was never written, he decides to write it himself, and then there's all kinds of crazy adventures that happen because of that. So I'm not going to tell you anything more. There are some twists and turns in this book, and I was quite surprised at different points. So I really enjoyed this book and I would recommend it. So next up is another mystery thriller, and I'm just realizing how many mystery thrillers are on my list for January. Oh boy, I need to be a little more diverse next month. Okay, so this one, Loved it. I almost gave it 5 stars. The only reason why I didn't give it 5 stars was because there was some triggering stuff with child abuse that was just a little bit like, oh, no, I can't handle child abuse very well. So this was by Katrina Ward. It was a Good Reader's Choice Award nominee for the best horror book. So I guess it's not a mystery thriller, it's a horror book for 2021. So I really liked this book. So this book is told from the point of view of several different characters in the book. So first of all, there's this man who may or may not have kidnapped and killed a child. There is also the little girl's sister, who's now an adult, who is searching for the person who kidnapped her sister. So you get to read her point of view. You get to read the point of view of the man's daughter. And then the last narrator of the book is the man's cat, which I thought was so cute. Like, I loved reading that perspective, like the cat's perspective on things. I thought that was really neat. So this book had me guessing all the way up to the end. And it has haunted me ever since, like not in a bad way, in a way that I'm still processing it. I'm like, no, wait, what? Okay. And, you know, like I'm still processing it. In fact, even though I know what's going to happen, I know all the twists now, I kind of want to read it again, which is never the case for me. Whenever I read a book and I know what's going to happen, I have no desire to read that book again. But this one, I want to read it again. Now that I know everything, I think that would be, yeah, I kind of want to read it again. So this is 4.5 stars. Highly recommend this book. And finally, the last book I read was called The Four Winds by Kristen Hanna. This book was 5 stars. Hands down, 5 stars. So this was a Good Reader's Choice Award nominee for the best historical fiction book of 2021. So this is another book that I listened to on audio while I was working. It was amazing. This is the story of Elsa Martinelli. She is a farmer's wife in Texas during the Great Depression, during the Dust Bowl, and her decision to ultimately leave Texas and move to California in search of a better life. She faces so many obstacles and hardships in her efforts to save her family. I felt like this was a very realistic depiction of that time, and yet still timely in what some people are dealing with today. David, my husband, he even suggested at one point that I stop reading to the book, or actually stop listening to the book. He felt like it was just hurting me too much, but I persevered and I finished the book. I read the whole story, I listened to the whole story, and I'm so glad I did. I think that in the end, this book is about perseverance, grit, and the human desire to survive, even in some of the toughest circumstances. I also appreciate how this author demonstrated the incredible strength of women, because I feel like women aren't always depicted as strong, and they're not always strong, but there is this strength that women have, especially in times, I think, of conflict, and when it's time to survive and time to pull up your bootstraps and be there for your family, be there for your kids. Women just have this strength that is incredible, and I don't think it's always recognized and appreciated. So I really enjoyed reading that. Strong female character, but she was really an ordinary woman who did extraordinary things, So my camera died. It actually overheated. I guess I talked too long, or maybe I was just too intense. I don't know. But I couldn't leave the video with that last awkward screenshot there. So I thought I'd come back and thank you guys for watching and encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I know this is currently the only video on this channel, but I promise you there will be many more videos to come. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.